Mswatu inkosi ithula akayithathe akahambe nayo akayithathe yotenza bakhe wone
Good morning. It's a beautiful Monday morning. Thank you for tuning in. This is Kusile Breakfast Show, the 11th of May 2026. We welcome you here on Kusile Breakfast Show. We are live on our YouTube page, Eswatini TV, and at DSTV. We are live as well, Eswatini TV channel 286. Good morning. My name is Lungile Makakula Mguni. How are you? How was your weekend?
Right. My weekend was fantastic. It was amazing indeed. We are sonfeni. It was a beautiful weekend indeed. The unity that we have in the kingdom. It was beautiful to see the culture display and football action and visitors coming into Eswatini from all parts of the world, and of course Eswatini TV broadcasting the game live. A lot of fans were happy online, telling us that at least they can watch the games. Taiwan, South Africa, all over the world. But indeed, a beautiful morning, Lulu. You know, a week ago, we had President Lai, the Taiwan President Lai Ching-te. We know our best friend is Taiwan. 58 years is how old this relationship between these two countries is. And of course, over the last 40 years, temnotfo nakuletinye nje tinzayo kakhulu luhlangothi lwetekulima eTaiwan elibambisa kakhulu live la kaNgwane. Siyafuna ke lomhla ekseni njoba sinasanele sibiya nje somnotho wethu kubuka bona budlelwane live la kaNgwane lelinawo nemave emhlaba netinhlangano takamhlaba, bilateral and unilateral relations. Sitabuka nje cishe tonkana but sitawucala kubo budlelwane beSwatini neTaiwan nasanele sibiya.
Mother's Day. We were celebrating mothers yesterday. The role they play in society, in churches. Base masonveni kuning ekhaya kumele manake abantwana, so yes itolo nje basithi halala bomake sifuna ukuthi babe nelanga lelihle itolo
ngeSiswati nje singasho mama usuku lwelithango ngoba luthango ngalesiswati sithi luyabiyela bawathi ke kubiyela ukuthi na ungabiyeli kakhona ngabe ngidawubekisa nje example leshashibonakala na ulima sathi unetilimo takho lapha yana mahlabishi noma yini lokho naloko awukabiyeli ku very possible ukuthi na uvuka ekseni ukhanze tilimo takho tingekho noma tsathi tigebengu noma tidliwe bologwaja noma timbuti awukabiyeli luthango ke luyabiyela luqinisekisa kona ukuthi siyavikeleka kuleto tinfo leto tingakhanza ukuthi tibatihibe noma tifuna kusebela emakhaya ethu. So happy Mother's Day. I think it's sengasho still fresh.
Happy Mother's Day. All right, anyway, lekunye simphathekile lomhla ekseni will be joined by the CEO of the Eswatini Business Health and Wellness. They'll be hosting their 4th Mental Health Symposium. In symposium gelena yabasomabhizinisi, your CEOs, your CFOs, disebenzi nje, those that are in the corporate world kanye nalabo abasebenza emafamily wonke umuntu nje losebenzako SME somabhizinisi lomncane. Sifuna kona isiqiniseko sokuthi bonke baluleme engqondweni, because we go through a lot of stresses, challenges, financial struggles. Le symposium lena ke itawusita konke ukuthi balalele ku-addresseke tonke letinkinga leti ukuthi how do they overcome financial anxiety and these financial struggles. Sitabe sinathobile kanye naSiyanda Dlamini kuzovitela nje sithombe sekuthi emcoka kanganani le symposium lena for those that are employees and employers. Ungayenzawo.
It's a Monday morning, the 11th of the month of May. Tinsuku letilishumi nakunye. Uyokele nyanga lesetulo sithemba ukuthi nivuka kahle emasotla amahle ngokuthi lisuku litawuchubeka lube luhle lihlelo lethu ke liyachubeka masibuya emarket.
Mswanu ingosi akayithathe akahambe nayo
emethwa kavuthe malangabi anjenge wembube anjenge wengwenyama
Nangulu nebekunene ngaleNkosi Bhekimpi Hlonishwa His Excellency His Majesty King Mswati III. This is the moment of truth. King Mswati III as he is being driven around the arena and greeting the crowd. There is whistling, ululating and joy among everybody here.
Nayo-ke isisondela izohlaliswa-ke esihlalweni sayo sobukhosi yinkosi entsha yesizwe samaSwazi bandla esiyibona laphayana.
Ingosi kuthula akayithathe akahambe nayo yedenza bakhe
Size sinemukele nadi dindzaba. Tingulungwane netingulungwane tesive tingenele emancamo emqhudelwano wengwenyama cup enkundleni yesive kaSomhlolo. Emancamo omqhudelwano lese uhlanganisa iminyaka lelishumi wasungulwa abusiswe kunyathela kwamakhosi nesikolo. Umsebenzi uqala ngemancamo emacembu etemasiko.
Inzaki beyibekelwe emadolo kumancamo emqhudelwano wengwenyama cup kutemasiko. Kusiphukethe idzinzi ngesikhathi kungqubutana imiphakathi leyaphuma embili etifundzeni yachubekela kumancamo enkundleni yesive kaSomhlolo. Emajaji lebeka nemsebenzi wokuhlunga emacembu ladle umhlanganiso athi khanze athwele emasondvo enyathi njengoba kubebede inkunzi lebeyifuna kugoba luphondo. Inkundla ivulwe timbongi letibonge tibongo tenkosi Mbandzeni kwathulana itulu imbongi Minenhle Dlamini Thulani Mkhatshwa Sicelo Khumalo naNtokozo Seyama. luthango lolufike kumancamo kube luthango lwakalanga kabheka inkosi eluvinjelweni nelithango lwasebuseleni kugwebane nembali kuwo ummiso koba nemmiso wakalanga embelebeleni edlangeni nasebuseleni kwathi kiwo emabhaca kwaqhubzelana umbelebeleni kamkhweli ebuseleni nasemaphalaleni kulacwebetelako ukuthola netulu emajasi emkhuzweni ebuseleni kaphunga nasenkamazi lubeluhle kuwo onke emabutho lunyawo kwabonakala ukuthi liyafezeka liphupho lengwenyama nephakamisa emasiko ngalomqhudelwano wengwenyama cup lesolo uqhubeka nekupha onke emaswati eveni lithuba lekugabadisa abugabazi nenhlanye kube khona lemihlomelo lemihle letholakalako. Umsebenzi ubese sewuthatha isigaba lesiphakeme ngesikhathi kuba nekujabula lokukhulu enkundleni yesive kaSomhlolo. Lokhu kwendeke ngesikhathi sekunyathela emakhosi lathola inkundla igcwele icitheka sive sibulala inyoka. Kunyathele indlovu emhlaba lekuthite ngemva kwaloko kwanyathela silo semhlaba lebesingethwe ngumabhalane lomkhulu enhlanganweni ye-OACPS umhlonishwa Musa Batraki. Lizinyane lembube umvane nkosi isibusezweni libe seselikhangisa ngendzebe lethethe koshampeni balonyaka kulomqhudelwano lesowuhlanganise iminyaka lelishumi wasungulwa. Lobika kwethu indzabeni ngisandile Makhanya naswele masuku namxolisi Mavimbela enkundleni yesive kaSomhlolo.
Umhlonishwa Ndvunankhulu Russell Dlamini sawufikile eNairobi, Kenya lapho ayongenela khona umhlangano lebitwa ngokuthi Africa Forward Summit. Umhlonishwa Ndvunankhulu ufikele eJomo Kenyatta International Airport lapho emukelwe khona ngolunxuselele Eswatini Mahlaba Mamba kanye nalabakhulu kuhulumende wakulela live.
Umhlonishwa Ndvunankhulu Russell Miso Dlamini sewufikile lapha eNairobi eKenya kutawungenela lo mhlangano wemalanga lamabili nakefika eJomo Kenyatta International Airport wemukelwe ngulonxuselele Eswatini kule live lelisesifundzeni lesempumalanga neAfrika Mahlaba Mamba. Ndvunankhulu ukuleli nje utawungenela umhlangano lomkhulu wemave yase-Afrika neFrance lobitwa ngekuthi yi-Africa Forward Summit. Kulo mhlangano kubhekeke ukuthi kutekwe tindzaba letifaka ekhatsi tekucubungula kwakhiwa kwemisebenzi yesimanje temandla temphilo netekulima. Lo mhlangano uhlose kwakha kulingana kusebenzisana nekuhloniphana emkhatsini kwemave yase-Afrika kanye neFrance. Lo mhlangano ubhekeke ukuthi utsintse tindzaba temnotfo nentutfuko lekhonsako e-Afrika. Kubhekile ukuthi mengameli weFrance Emmanuel Macron abe ingcenye yalo mhlangano. Lo mhlangano lona ubhekeke ukuthi ube nemthelela etinhlelweni tahulumende tekucatulula inkinga yekweswelakala kwemisebenzi njengoba nelibhange lemhlaba liveta ukuthi babalelwa ku-35% bantfu labeswele umsebenzi eSwatini. I-World Bank ithi lesibalo lesi ngulesinye saletisetulu kakhulu emhlabeni. Kubika Themkosi Mavimbela eNairobi eKenya.
Sibe senkundla yasemanzini South sithi sinelithemba ukuthi itikhala taso lokufaka ekhathi kwanza kwebucala sekutawuba yinfo yayitolo netindzawo letakhelene nalo lidolobha lakamanzini tibambele izinga lelifanele. Lesive sikusho lokhu ngesikhathi sibambe umhlangano wentuthuko nelibandla lenkundla leliholwa ngumhlonishwa owenqumalo kanye namasipala welidolobha lakamanzini. Umhlangano bubanjwe esikolweni eNgwane Park.
Sive senkundla yasemanzini South sithi kuyintokoto ukubona libandla lenkundla lichubeka nekubanika indlebe etikhalweni taso lokuyintfo lemvela kancane kuletinye tinkundla lapha eveni. Sikhulumisana nalomsakato sive siveta tintfo letifise ukuthi tisombululwe masinyane ikakhulu etindzaweni etisondzene nelidolobha lakamanzini letibonakala tisifesane etimpilweni taso.
Imigwaco yaseNgwane Park ilinyeva kakhulu kutakhamuti. Siyacela lokuthi kumane kube nale improvement through the CPI and namasipala.
Ngikhale nalokuthi kujutshwa lamahlathi la ngoba bayabhaqa bezilanda lapha. Nakhala ukuthi nabantu balahla tibinda etihosheni yabona. Etihosha ngikhale ama street light amanye kude afile bhutwami.
Uletha inkukhu vele siyakhala ngoba sesitibela kuseni ngabo-5 noma 4 simangala ukuthi hey idliwa yini
ngendzaba yema-rates kuthi nasesibadala sikhona lokubhadara sithi-ke mane basibukele ukuthi siphila njani sibantu labadzala singadlelwa umhlabathi wethu.
Lilunga lephalamende lalenkundla umhlonishwa wencumalo uthi balibandla lenkundla sebakuvile ekhala kwesivo washo nokuthi ngekubambisana unelethemba ukuthi lokhu kutawusombululwa masinyane.
Kunenge letikhulumile takhamuthi tengwane park ke ticelile ukuthi imigwaco ayilungiswe itharishwe kwakhulunywa ke nendzaba ke yebucala. Lenye ke indzaba lehamba phambili ngilendzaba lentayati msakadi lendzaba yemthetho wemadolobha kuthiwa i-Rating Act. Lokusho ukuthi labantu labadzala sebabakadzala vele abasakhona ukukhipha lama rates. So vele lendzaba yokuthi i-amend le-Rating Act sikhulumile ngayo. Ngiyajabula ke lokuthi indvuna yaka housing umhlonishwa amaphalala so vele soyisukumisini. Bese ngacela nje ukuthi labathinzakako bayisebenzele lendzaba iye ngasemaphethelweni.
Kanzi umphathi lomusha welidolobha lakaManzini iCulani Masuku uthi lokhu ubhekene nabo bangumasipala batakusumela itulu ngekuphatima kweliso.
Takhamuthi ke tikhulumile tikhalile ngendzaba yebucala lobukhona eNgwane Park. Kuthi kufuna ukuthi siyi-revive initiative yethu siyibooste initiative yemaphoyisa eMango. There is a greater need yokuthi kwakhiwe lemigwaco iresurfacewe kabusha itharishwe letinye katito khona ukuthi tibe tincane le drainage system ibe khona ibe sesimeni sekuthi mhlambe kungachubeka kubonakala ukuthi idolobha liyathuthuka.
Lokhu kwenteka nje ngesikhathi lapho khona lidolobha lakaManzini lilungisa imigwaco leminyenti ekhatsi edolobheni. Lo bikako ngumpendulo kumbi eNgwane Park.
Luthando nguwona mjovo longiwo sibili ekuletheni kuphila kulabo labakhathatekile engqondweni kanye nasemoyeni. Luphindze luletheni elithemba kanye nekuphila kulabo labagulako nalabasetinhlungwini. Lokho kushiwo ngolokhulumela inhlangano yecela umusa Mbingo Foundation Tehlabe Dlamini ngesikhathi lenhlangano ivakashele bomake emawadini labagulela kuwo esibhedlela se-RFM kaManzini ngelisonto.
Njengoma umhlaba namhla ukupha lusuku labomake eMother's Day ngephansi kwesicubulo sakamhlaba lesithi The Great Unburdening lesiveta bomcuka bekwethula bomake tinhlobonhlobo temithwalo lababhekene nayo. Inhlangano yecela umusa Mbingo Foundation ivele ihambisana ngco ngaso lesicubulo ngehlaba ngesikozwana bomake labasetinhlungweni ngetithelo kanye netinsipho dekugeza. Lo khulumela lenhlangano Tehlane Dlamini uveta bomcuka belithando kanye nekunakekelana.
Uma sithandzana sinakekelana silive nahulumende siyambambisa kangcono. uNkulunkulu ke uthinta umuntu asebenzise umuntu kusebenta empilweni yomuntu. Siyacabanga ukuthi nabo tinhlitiyo tabo lokunamuhla tijabulile tithole kusmayila batawusinabo dokotela nababelapha ngekwetemshilo bakhanze nomoya wabo utfokotile.
Laba setinhlungwini kanye nalabo lababakatsile bayaveta ukuthi ukhunjulwa ngaloluhlobo kushone timpilweni tabo.
Solongathi nhloza ke ngikubone lo lakambi. Siyabonga kakhulu bosuthu. Siyabonga abantu bami uNkulunkulu angizisela nisithe khona nize nisikhumbule na banike bayasidlela basigadile babhabada.
Sitiva sijabule kakhulu shem ukuthi nakulesimo lesi bakhona labasikhumbulako. Siyanithandazela ukuthi uNkulunkulu achubeke aniphe amandla ekuthi niphindze nichubekele nasembili.
Siyabonga ukuthi basinike uthando nekusibonisa ukuthi nathi sibantu lo siletela esibhedlela asikalahlwa. Sibonga ukuthi noma basetinhlungwini lo lokwentekile nje khona lokuthinzeka kwetinhlitiyweni tabo lokumnanjana. Sibonga kakhulu kusinakisa ngoba kusinakisa lokho kusibambisa. Ngicabanga ukuthi batawubuyela emakhaya batawufike bayite kwasanganekwane.
Bomake babidwa ngetimbokodo nje ingani ngoma bagcini ngekubeketela kanye nekusimamisa emakhaya kepha bajinge babebuthishela bekucala ekhuliseni umntwana. Lo bikako ngumpendulo kumbi kaManzini.
Bamfu besifazane bayadzinga kuhlangana bavusetelelane baphindze bachushisane kamoya kude bakhone kulwa kangcono ngebulikhuni labahlangabetana nabo nato etimphelweni baphindze bakhe nemakhaya lasimeme. Lokho kushiwo ngumholi welibandla leBelievers in Christ First Lady Bishop Dr. Mamuruti Shabalala enkonzweni yabomake ekuvusetelana.
Lisonto le The Believers in Christ liqhubela umsebenzi ngakubambisana nenhlangano yeStuki Motor Foundation ngenhloso yokuthi abantu besifazane bangenganywa timoto emhlaba labahlangabetana nato imihla nemalanga. Umholi walolu bandla First Lady Dr. Mamuruti Chabalala uchaza ngengcikithi yalenkonzo.
Ngicela ukusho kwimbokodo ukuthi be open, ukhulume, ungahlali esimeni esicindezela ukuthi ngelinye ilanga size sibeke iwreath enkulu phezu kwecasket yakho sithi rest in peace kanti uye wathula. Yes, abantu abadala nabogogo bethu babethi kuyabekezelwa kuyahlalwa, babekhuluma ngokuhlala emendweni, babengakhulumi ngokuhlala enkosini, but now ngezikhathi zethu sikhuluma ngokuhlala enkosini.
Umfundisi Magomango welibandla leBeauty of Ashes ukhuthade bomake labafelo kade ukuthi bangasilahli lesibinzi sekubamba livangeli njengoma sinemvuzo lomkhulu.
Noma sekwendeke empilweni thina lesikholwako siba nawo lo moya wekuthi asichubekeni phambili, akuthi ngoba sewehlekalelwe noma sowushiwe ngiloyo lohlala naye noma ngiloyo lobeka kuthethe nawe sekumele ufe. Umlayito wethu lomkhulu nje uthi impilo iyachubeka khona uNkulunkulu lokwadi kubamba sandla semuntu noma sekasele yedvana.
Fisiwe kininza loqhamuka embuthweni wamaphoyisa ehlangothile kulona ekuhlukubetana emakhaya ukhuthade bomake ukuthi bakhulise abantu babo ngeluthando.
Ngicela sibuyele kumina sibiye bakwabefu naseBhayibhelini kuyavela ukuthi uNkulunkulu uthi asibavumele betemoya. Usho sabantwana kukhula labaphethe. Ngeke ke balishayela target F10 sibayekelele. Labo make phala bakhohlakele. Xa ubuka nje sakwazi kwamisa umfana. Asekulithathele bakwakha kasananzana naye. Amfundzise lokukhulu.
Fezile Mthupha uthi bantu labasha labaphethe Jesu bayakuletha ukuthula edingqondweni debadali babo.
If usaba uNkulunkulu before anything else kubalula lokubese siya navigate la mphilweni. So nase bafika nebadali seba eda ke on kufike kube lula ke kakhulu. Siba mflabasha obamflaba labancane, we think mhlambe uNkulunkulu angathi we have imaginations lamaningi. We fail to understand ukuthi naNkulunkulu angehla afike ku level yakho.
Kulenkonzo bekumenywe bakaliphathi labafundise ngekuphathwa kwemali. Lo bikako ngumpendulo kumbi eMalkens.
Nzengale Dositi phetha lapho tindzaba tetfu. It's 22 minutes after 6. Thatha likefu sabuya masinyane.
First of all, I'd like to take the opportunity to congratulate His Majesty on serving the nation for 40 years. It is a really great milestone that we are all proud of as a Maswati.
Libito lami ngiwandile ngwakamotha. Kulo msakato sengineminyaka lengu-23 ngisebenza kiyo.
Igama lami nguNkosinathi Mabusela. Ngisebenzile vele kaSwazi TV kusukela nga-1979 to 2014. ngagcina-ke sengu-editor in chief khona.
In 1986, the Kingdom of Eswatini welcomed a young monarch, His Majesty King Mswati III, whose reign would usher in a new chapter of vision, unity, and pride. That same year, Eswatini television stood as the kingdom's window to the world, capturing the hopes, voices, and dreams of a nation rising with its king. As His Majesty the King guided the nation through its formative years, Eswatini television grew into the heartbeat of national expression. From community stories to national events, every frame carried the pride, rhythm, and the voice of a kingdom united by its king.
Walilekelela live umsakazo, wayilekelela ingonyama ngaloko ukuthi phela nawe i-public broadcaster kufuna ukhulume liqiniso njengemfundisi. Umsakazo-ke usita lapha ekuthini na usheshe wayikhipha indzaba lenye iyasita ekuthini hawu sekuyashangala sekusheshe kutholakala ama-solutions. Akusinje lokhu sonke isikhathi kuhleba lomunye kuceba lomunye, no, kweku-aletha lelive lonke lithi-ke ngema-structures alo kube nesikhathi lokuthi lilungise leto tinto letonakalayo.
I'd say you're right. We are a public broadcaster, and being a public broadcaster means we exist to provide a public service. And it is a public service of educating, informing, and entertaining eMaswati. Particularly doing all these elements through the Swazi way, or telling the story of Eswatini, and also carrying and propagating the message and the vision of His Majesty the King.
Under His Majesty's guidance, Eswatini television became the stage for empowerment. New voices rose. Women led, youth found their calling, telling stories of culture, resilience, and hope.
His Majesty's reign reminds us that media can educate and empower. We tell stories that celebrate Eswatini's identity.
Guided by His Majesty's vision of modernization, Eswatini television embraced innovation, evolving from analog to digital, from one channel to a network that connects every corner of the kingdom. Through technology, we carried the royal message of unity, of peace and progress to every screen and every heart.
Itolo kusakada kwethu bese kubita ngalesilungu ukuthi ku-analog. Lokusho ukuthi ku-signal engidawuthi mhlawumbe ngile final product lefika emakhaya. Bokhanza ukuthi kukhona kufitsitela kwemsindo, kukhona kufitsitela kwesithombe. Lobe khanza ke ukuthi uzodwa ukhanza umuntu omdzalo umisa umntwana, hey ijikisi uyibhekisele, ijikisi uyibhekisele ukhanza sigcina sithombe nemsindo kuvakala ngconywana akhona ebukela umuntu omdzalo emakhaya.
Today, as Eswatini celebrates His Majesty King Mswati III's 40th year on the throne, we look back with such pride. For 4 decades, Eswatini television has carried the King's vision across time, preserving the memory, the message, and the majesty of our nation's story.
Eswatini TV has been that conduit that carries the voice of His Majesty the King over his 40 years of reign. His Majesty the King, through different forums, including Sibaya, speaks great messages in terms of the direction that the country should take, in terms of guidance to eMaswati, in terms of also just inspiring the nation. Eswatini TV carries those messages to the entire country and the rest of the world.
40 years of the King, 40 years of the nation's voice. Eswatini Television salutes His Majesty King Mswati III, our beacon of unity, culture and progress. Long live the King. Long live Eswatini.
Welcome back. It's a Monday morning. Thank you for staying with us. We are joined by Tobile Dlamini. She is the CEO of the Eswatini Business Health and Wellness. Without taking a list this week, but bane symposium yabo yesine. This is the 4th edition lapho khona baba nale health symposium. Siyadike ukuthi mental health ibaleke kakhulu solo indzaba lesihambisa embili nje leyo kakhulu kati betempilo bayihambisa kakhulu indzaba yokuthi mental health yethu akube nguleyo lekahle. We are joined by Makatobile atichazela kabanti ukuthi ngabe lo nyaka what can we anticipate from the symposium. Of course, a very good morning. Thank you for coming through on the breakfast show. This is your 4th edition. Ngiyakholela ukuthi the first, second and third symposium yahamba kahle. Mhlambe kuzivetela nje sithombise ukuthi nize nibe nale symposium yini nayibona ngimaphi ama gaps lena wabona ikakhulukazi in the corporate world.
Thank you, Lulu, and good morning to all viewers. It was in 2021 when you'll remember at the peak of COVID-19, and then the country also experienced unrest, and in the same vein, besatila issue HIV. There were so many disruptions in people's lives, and we saw our numbers. Bafuna one-on-one counseling. Actually, they moved from 300 a year to 3,000, despite the lockdown. And we saw malunga 8 afuna more than just now face-to-face counseling. Sebafuna even online counseling. So what is coming up? Kulama issues labafuna kuluma ngawo sakhanza ukuthi there's a lot of mental stress, and the said no, let us talk to this. At the time masicala sabuka lokuthi labantu stana lo frustrated ukuthi akakhona access amaphilisi akhe because of, you remember, I lockdown. Lo frustrated because niyalo une COVID usendlini funa adle amaphilisi. Lo frustrated because waba exposed to that violence that happened kule abusuku bamhla ka-29 June. Says let us talk to these things. People abacope labanye nje stress sabo kwaba ngona lokuhlala indoors, something they had never known. So the problems were around there. Labanye kwakhula gender based violence. Says yahle mental health yafuna khulunyiswa. Sathi nasithi sichecka nakahulumende sakhanza ukuthi ikona i-National Psychiatric Center, but nabo kusengabi program le fully fledged, but sa partnerisha was supporter UNAIDS sayibamba ke the first mental health symposium, and that one say open even to non-private sector people, because with the support from UNAIDS we're able to invite even people in government to say come let us talk. So yeah, le demand yabonakala clear, and because there were even individuals who said if it means my healing, I would rather pay for myself. So tigafishane lama symposiums are responder to a need from our statistics. Whatever we see or whatever we get to see nani nibetinzaba niku report gitsi sebese siyakubuka kushoni si business in the country bese sibuka nekuthi what are the people coming through for help requiring bese siyabona ukuthi okuyadzinga sesikhulise deep because nathi angithi asiyema expecting everything, so kusinika nelitfuba kulandze ma expects ukuthi atosisita ku unpack some of the stories or some of the issues labadila nawo bantfu ngoba ekugcineni thina tawukhumbula lolu ukuthi umsebenzi wethu kusithathe ngaphana ukuthi sibe productive. So uma i-employee i-troubled, the company itself is troubled. Uma even ekhaya anetinkinga angeke athi nafika lapha egedeni bese uthi ngingata sekhadi sali ungena nato lamsebentini bese kumbe kusasa senithi hey disebenta lapha ti route o ukhanze singapha na isawa meet ama targets ngoba sisebenza nebantfu labafuna ba meet ama targets. So my employers abona looks there must be a program, so we respond to also what they see and what they need. Sometimes we learn from neighboring countries ukuthi bona bendani angibeke senjini zabe ukuthi sasinayo i-call line, but because of business there are some companies that subscribe to that ukuthi bakhona accessa i-counseling 24 hours for them and their children, because at the end of the day i-theme yethu singu business health ukuthi healthy worker and a healthy business.
Okay, so njengokuthi vele this is your fourth symposium nayiqala because of the struggles lesawabona during COVID times. Yini mhlambe lesole ivela kakhulu during these symposiums? You know, we have CEOs, CFOs, we have entrepreneurs and SMEs that are financially struggling. Labanya, they can't keep their businesses sustainable. Ngaphi mhlambe ma challenges labawaveta, you know, kule symposium and niyakhona kubasita, you know, nikhonile kubasita over the years.
I think let's go consistent from lockdown is issue of financial management, both at individual and family level, which then companies now are feeling it, because like you're saying, some companies had to shut down, some had to, the smaller ones and even the bigger ones, they had to do readjustment because COVID really affected their operations. So that thing cascade to employees, and the financial management I think has been an issue for the past 2 symposium, and it's still in effect to this current one, because what we're seeing is that people are trying all means to survive, but at the same time but thinking and even more. So hence our topic for this 2026 symposium letaba khona ngelesithathu nje njoba kungumsombuluko namuhla sesizama kenya lokubuka bathe abantu nabatkhanza banema financial problems yini lenye lebesibafaka eweni and singenda njani kuba sita kulongene eweni. That's why utawuchaza kabanti my colleague nekuthi kutabe lohlelo luphetheni, but nje nakhona sikhanze ukuthi tinkinga tetimali ngekudlondlobala. Bantu are no longer living within their means, and nabanga live within their means abasakhona ukuperforma both at home and in the family, in the workspace, bagcina seba abusive labanye because of the financial challenges. So basically I think si discover ukuthi singemaswati asikakafundziseki about money. What is money and what relationship should you have with money? So na ngileto timfo lesizama ukuthi na ungabuka ngisho ema sessions lesinawo sihamba so addressa stress, sikhanze ukuthi stress that's umsebenzi mnengi mawuthi uyaphenya further kunetinkinga tetimali lo myuda ukhanza ukuthi upresente ngeke ukuthi I'm in an abusive relationship or sengifuna divorce, mawuthi yalandzelela inkinga imali.
Yeah, all right. Njengokusho nje ukuthi vele sibuka kakhulu i-mental health etisebentini nato kumcwangana nje ngokuthi vele yonke inkampani either big or small ibe ne mental health policy. And have you received any feedback from these companies that you've hosted throughout the 4 years kulawa mental health symposium ukuthi sebane mental health policy lesebendako leta benefita tisebenzi?
I think basically my programs there to vele first and foremost are based on a policy. And the policy is not just a nice document. The policy must be translated into a program that is evaluated. Quarterly, you must know what's happening on your program. And because HIV emsebenzini lesikubonga ngako silive ukuthi kwasikhomba ukuthi the workplace can do more than just HIV. It can be a place where health begins. Whether it's physical health, ngoba maybe next time sitawuqhamuka sesikhulumisa ama non-communicable diseases lafaka khathi boshukela nabo BP. Konke leto timvo uma sinema policies and programs in the workplace singalibambisa live sibambise nalo mkhicito wethu ngoba kutoncipha nalokulova kutawuncipha nalabantu labete emsebentini bafe bangasebenzi because babheklisha na too many problems.
Yeah, I think lokunye lesikubona konje ukuthi SME nje somabhizinisi lomncane utawuthi ngeke say afford mhlambe i-wellness program ingabe ngiphi nje singathini free intervention manager la mhlambe la ngayenda leta khona kusisite yena kanye ne-disability takhe
kulomnyaka lophile ngeke ngaba nenhlanhla MTN bekabite nje ma SMMEs la under yena sato ikhulumisa lenzaba inkinga bosomabhizinisi labancane bacabanga ukuthi le program idulile le program le yakhelwa bosomabhizinisi so mayakhelwe bosomabhizinisi it's non-profit making if in a membership structure yekubambisana baba sidinga phanini inako nana ukuthi nangabe namhla ngimbinjekile I can only pay for this lama fees are not what your ordinary market would charge you ngema fees labuka ukuthi sisebenta thine ngekwethu ngoba phela utokhumbula ukuthi business health waqalwa ngibo bosomabhizinisi so bebabacala lokubona vele ukuthi HIV, if we do nothing about it, we will all go under. So, sabakhutsata posoma business. Ikakhulu kubo sasiveta ukuthi the absence of a program actually aga wellness, it's one of the contributing factors gokuthi mangaphe ma business wena lulu nje umncane kona lo watiko la generational la kangwana.
Yeah, mancane.
Exactly. Because some now shoma programs ekubasithi bangenda njani ukuthi ibusiness engapheli ngayi magula yena nebusiness yagula kwafa yena nebusiness yafa most of the time bapheka ukuthi imali kude yonke lento is about budgeting kufanana nemuntu lo hlala athi yena ubhizi udesikhathi uye ubone silomuntu ukhona la ngakwadi ukumanage kahle ngoba you must have time for everything kunalemvo lesikhulumisa ukuthi i-work life balance isho ukuthi you must make time for everything so idzinga lokhu ube intentional sabakhuthatha and a lot of them were excited and they were willing to start somewhere but nje mase babuyele emakhaya bese ubuka lokhu la kwenda kumuntu ngitamakuthini the program can be accessed by anyone ayiduli nje ngoba bacabanga and inawo lama concessions ukuthi phela la ngina Rescorp ngina ubombo ngina Standard Bank ngina bani labakhona ukuthi basibambise bese siyakhona ukuthi nalo lokhiphe kancane angayiluzi le program.
Yeah. If I let you go on course before nje semukele siyanda ngapha ama topics mhlambe lesingawagatha during the symposium la tawutekwa ma speakers siyathi ukuthi vele kunaba financial anxiety bani mhlambe labatawukhulumisa leto tindzaba leto ukuthi yes going through financial struggles sengti overcome kanjani ngeleto dinga leto bobani nje ma speakers ataba khona ama topics
angicale ngale theme nje lo nyaka it is betting on well-being. This is based on people using gambling as a alternative source of income versus a game. It's a long story to be talked to, but so we are going to talk to the gambling landscape in Eswatini. We have 2 lecturers from UNESCO, Mr. Siabonga Mabuza, and we also have Prudence Latwayo. They will be bringing in a perspective less scholarly, but also they'll be bringing in a perspective, lama social determinants are some of these things. Then sistoba nabo nalababuya ka gaming board, because there should be some regulation, there should be some provision. Koguti, this is a business. A business in a nice side effects. How do we mitigate the side effects? There must be programs, and then there will be speaker also on harm reduction strategies. Here we've invited Professor Mapaling from the University of Northwest, who has done some work and even research on the topic. Ngoba lesina gola kangwane site na le research kahle ukuthi sime business live inkulu kangakanani le problem uma ngabe khona umuntu lo blower umholo wakhe overnight utobe suphila ngani kusasa. And then the last one ke stabe sikhulumisa the whole issue of financial health and confidence, because lesikwatiko ngulokuthi money is a spirit, but awuchaza kahle le, and how do you manage my spirits kuze angakufake wena.
Yeah, all right. Thanks so much, Nkosi. Well, there you have it, Mzlamadli. On Wednesday, itabayendeka the 4th Mental Health Symposium hosted by the Eswatini Business Health and Wellness. After the break, we're joined by Siyanda Dlamini. We get in deeper about the mental health in the workplace.
Thank you.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi
aba research bafunze. Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna sente ukukhicita lokusendlini.
All right, welcome back. We're continuing with our conversation. Sikhuluma nge Mental Health Symposium, the 4th edition hosted by the Eswatini Business Health and Wellness. I'm now joined by Siyanda Dlamini. Sikhuluma kabanti ngayo mental health in the workplace. A very good morning. Siyanda, thank you for joining us here on Kusile Breakfast Show. Sekachazile mage ukuthi health symposium in particular, you know, for those that are in the workplace. What is a normal workplace behavior?
Morning, Lulu. Morning to your viewers. Thank you for having us. A normal workplace behavior, or rather could I say an ideal workplace behavior, is a workplace that has got a sound organizational culture. Organizational culture is very, very important for a healthy workspace for employees. An organizational culture that uplifts ethics, good ethics, professional manner, psychological safety. A lot of organizations are promoting psychological safety these days because this speaks to the space of inclusion in the workplace, the space of promotion of teamwork, the space where people are able to talk about innovation, talk about challenges status quo if need be, to promote efficiency. If people have difficulty, we work on uplifting rather than a punitive situation of work. Currently, some organizations take that up and some are working really, really hard to better the organizational culture, which is one that's difficult to change, but we need to move towards a space where people feel psychologically safe, and you're definitely going to have better output from your employees in that kind of a situation.
All right. You know, there are SMEs that have struggles, financial struggles that they deal with each and every day. Financial anxiety.
Yeah.
We have young people that are employed now, they face their daily struggles. So now, see, this young person, how do they go about, you know, dealing with their mental health? Now this older employee, every day and every day, I'm 17, this is how you do this. We had to figure out I'm 17, you know, so I'm gonna go depression, she's excited, she's young, you know, she's willing to learn, but you know, how do you go about, you know, helping that person, you know, depression?
Thank you, Lulu. On the bigger spectrum, you want to start with, at an induction phase in any organization, we need to want to drive a personal value and a need for development, personal and professional development. People who tend to become toxic in that nature are people who haven't worked on development. So one way or another, we want to be stuck in old ways. One way or another, we want to limit younger people. We limit innovation because it becomes threatening. You tend to see that people who develop themselves professionally and personally are less prone to become toxic in work environments, which is what leads to perhaps abuse and ill treatment of younger people. And we really need to want to encourage our younger people to be resilient, to overcome these kind of situations, but to speak up, because policies really should have a zero tolerance to such behavior. Unfortunately, it usually is innate, and it is a power struggle. It's got those power dynamics which would make a person unable to regularly speak about such a situation. But you know, luckily our younger generation is more assertive, and is something we need to encourage. Assertive generation. And again, it goes back to the psychological safety. You will only have an assertive young person if you actually create those safe spaces for them in work, and then the protective measure if things go wrong in that manner.
Yeah, all right. And also I touched on financial anxiety. You know, we have SMEs as they're waiting for a business deal to come through, or maybe they're waiting for the bank to approve their loan. They go through a lot. How do they keep sane? You know, how do they make sure, you know, they're okay for whatever business deal they're waiting for?
And the reality is that SMEs, yes, the country as a whole, with everything that is happening, even the bigger organizations are taking a very big financial knock, and the biggest affected are the SMEs because they take less in the market. But we all have to have a reality at this point, and do what we can to make sure that our businesses survive. Let's have the open discussions within the organizations where, if your employees understand what is happening in the reality, people will tend to be more understanding on saving on the little costs that build up and become big costs. But the reality of it is that you can't make the changes without having the open communication with your employees. The negotiation that needs to happen with, if you're waiting for the bank, you're waiting for a business deal, understand this as understand, so that we walk the journey together. Anxiety will always be there. If you need to downsize, even your employees need to prepare if ever they need to downsize and change behavior, financial behavior, so that they prepare for the worst. Let's do it on time. If you are going to downsize, do it on time. Prepare the change management story. You know, prepare people for the restructuring you might have to do. Those who are going to become redundant, give them enough time to prepare themselves to downsize, do what they have to do. Nyalonje is make school fees. If a person angakakhoni ukulungisa on time, and then you need to let them go, you know, if they get time to discuss with someone. Financial coaches are there. We have even financial coaches on call. We have counselors who can talk to you really about your expenditure, even what about you and your experiences and your upbringing influence your spending and your relationship with money. And then a coach will come down to the nitty-gritty. To look, these are your expenses, this is your income, and your plan for the year. You only have a job for 3 months. Maybe you had expenses that needed you to pay till December. What are the realistic changes that you are going to need to make, and what are you paying first, and all of these little debt management situations that will really, really help a person sleep better at night. But we all have to have a mindset that we are going through a tough time worldwide, but as a country as well. And for us to get through it, we need to actually buckle down and be resilient.
That's true. So mental health stress is different for someone who is in textile, corporate, or even government?
Yes and no. Within the landscape of the country, I would say they are the same, because marriage, relationship issues tend to be driven holistically from the landscape of our country. The way we're raising children, people are busy, whether they're in textile or even in corporate. Everybody is busy, and how we're raising our children has changed probably as a country. What tends to be different are the occupational stressors. Somebody who works in textile has a different, occupational situation. They might talk about they stand all day and the stressors and the physical stressors they have, which translate even to the mental. But someone in corporate might spend their day in an office. And those textile, oh my gosh, why would this person complain? They've got a desk and aircon. And yes, and that person will tell you, I spend a whole day alone in the office. I talk to clients on the phone only, and the problems they face are very, very different. So yeah, in terms of the occupational mental health state and occupational health itself across industry, it's different. The financial one tends to be the same, so that is countrywide. And then, yeah, those other personal, individual, how you were raised, all of these other little situations that are more personal tend to be different across the landscape.
All right, so looking at the 2030 vision, what would you say an Eswatini mentally healthy workplace looks like?
Oh, I'm going to start drawing pictures and painting all over. I really hope that by 2020 people are going to be focusing on soft skill, organizational culture, like I say, psychological safety. Let's start even with raising children that are going to be employees that are healthy and support one another. And we have healthy workspaces where innovation is driven through creation of value of people, rather than if you don't, there's a stick following you around. So carrot stick story, but creation of value within employees, let them want to drive the work, and that takes certain levels of soft skill and being intentional about the environments that we create. And so we are creating healthy workers, as we say at EBH. We are creating healthy workers so that businesses thrive, and then our economy. So we're all happy when we have a better economy, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. Just before I let you go, because how crucial is it for businesses, SMEs and everyone, non-private sector, to be part of the symposium?
Oh, it's so crucial. We have seen a lot of financial issues stemming around or resulting from gambling addiction, gambling behavior, and also families, breakdown of families. People are going to go towards suicide if they're not careful. Look, we're not saying that there shouldn't be gambling, right? But it should be game. It should be healthy. It should be something you do as a recreation. So this is across the board for everybody to understand. And also, if you have addictive behavior, you're probably going to be addicted to one substance or the other. A lot of people are latching onto gaming. We would like work to better understand what the story is, because this is a very new situation that we're seeing a lot of people in the counseling room coming in and they're unable to stop. They have a lot of outcomes from this. So we need work to understand what is actually going on. It's not just Lulu decided klang, there are drivers and there are outcomes and all of this. So if the people who are responsible for others, or even if you understand you might have a problem, you want to understand better and work your way out of it, this is a very helpful space. Like Mage said, we are going to talk about the regulations and policies within the country, the ethical governance story around it. We are going to have people who have got experience as counselors who can tell us a robust story, right? Because it's also a big stigma area. People want to do this, they get to do it in private. So I'm unable to tell you that I actually have an addiction now, have a problem, because my problem is hidden on my phone. So we want to get people to understand it so that we game in a healthy manner, and then the finance is very impacted. So whether you're an individual, you have got an organization, an SME, you lead people everywhere and anywhere. Even our children are gambling at this rate, about 2 rand babu. Right. So so it is very critical for everybody.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Sianda, for your
You're very
time.
welcome.
Well, there you have it, Masatla Mahle. Do attend this year's Mental Health Symposium. For more details, do visit the Eswatini Business Health and Wellness on their Facebook page. Let's go for a break.
Those that are in pain must forget all the problems they have. Because the things of the earth have got no answer. But the answer that we have is all morning. When I'm preaching here, I'm preaching to myself. I receive the Holy Spirit.
I declare that a turnaround is coming my way.
Turnaround is coming in my life.
The Eswatini TV Board of Directors, Management and Staff wish to extend our sincerest congratulations to His Majesty King Mswati III on this historic Ruby Jubilee of His Majesty's coronation. Eswatini TV is deeply honored to celebrate the momentous occasion of His Majesty's 40 years on the throne. As a broadcaster, we have had the distinct privilege of witnessing your reign and steadfast leadership through our lenses, capturing every milestone of progress for the nation. Through our broadcast, we have documented a transformation driven by your vision, from significant infrastructural development to the delivery of exceptional social services and the unwavering promotion of national unity. We honor your steadfast dedication to uplifting all Emaswati and your profound commitment to peace, stability, and the spirit of agape love. May your Majesty continue to lead with wisdom and grace. Bayete wena waphakati.
His Excellency, His Majesty King Mswati III. This is the moment of truth. King Mswati III as he is being driven around the arena and greeting the crowd. With whistling, ululating, and joy among everybody here.
Nayo ke isisondela izohlaliswa ke esihlalweni sayo sobukhosi inkosi entsha yesizwe samaSwazi bandla esiyibona laphayana.
Inkosi ikuthula akayithathe akahambe nayo akayithathe yedenza bakhe
to all the viewers of Eswatini TV in the kingdom and beyond. Eswatini TV is regulated by the Eswatini Communications Commission through the Broadcasting Code and Broadcasting Guidelines. Under these instruments, the station commits to broadcasting information and news that have been fact-checked, programs and content in respectful language with no elements of hate speech, violence or sexual activity. If you hear any unsuitable content on this channel, you have a right to voice your complaints with the station management. Should you not be satisfied with the response or action taken, you can escalate your matter to the Communications Commission at PO Box 7811 Babani. Call 2406 7000 or send an email to info@esccom.org.za. For more information, visit www.esccom.org.za.
bayethe wena phakathi silo sikhulu singemaswati sikubonile uhlele esihlalweni sebukhosi iminyaka lengamashumi lamane ngako ke sicela kubonga sibonga umdali ngawe ngoba kulamashumi lamane sibone intuthuko lenkulu kakhulu eSwatini sibone usakhela i-constitution sabona uqinisa kundlela lesibusa ngayo singemaswati tinkhundla letinkhundla utibhice nebuntu bethu nesilungu siphinze sibonge silo sikhulu kwekuthi usakhele ebuhlobo ngaphandle lapho sibone khona la banye baholi bahlukubeteka kepha wena ngekuthi uyinkosi yemhlaba wabathatha labo baholi wabafaka esiswini sakho sithi silo sikhulu sifisa konke lokufisile ngalelive lakho kuchubeke kukhule ezukhula nawe nathi singemaswati sikhule kanye nawe ngendlela lophethe ngayo losithandza ngayo sonke singemaswati ungabalibala lemuntu sithi silo sikhulu nathi sikuthandza ngayo le ndlela siyathandaza uNkulunkulu ukuthi akunike lo munye 40 years noma ngetulo ngoba siyakudzinga bayethe wena phakathi.
To connect to your smart TV, start by connecting your TV aerial or antenna to the port at the back of your smart TV. Step 2. Switch on your TV, press the menu button and navigate to settings. Step 3. From the settings menu, select channels and input and press OK. Choose channels, then select channel scan. Step 4. In the channel scan menu, select manual scan. Set the frequency to 570,000 kilohertz, then press search. Note, ensure the tuner mode is set to antenna, not cable, and the channel type is set to digital, not analog. Happy viewing!
First of all, I'd like to take the opportunity to congratulate His Majesty on serving the nation for 40 years. It is a really great milestone that we are all proud of as a Maswati.
Libito lami ngiwandile ngwakamotha. Kulo msakato sengineminyaka lengu-23 ngisebenza kiyo.
Igama lami nginguKosinathi Mabusela. Ngisebenzile vele kaSwazi TV kusukela nga-1979 to 2014. Ngagcina-ke sengu-editor-in-chief khona.
In 1986, the Kingdom of Eswatini welcomed a young monarch, His Majesty King Mswati III, whose reign would usher in a new chapter of vision, unity, and pride. That same year, Eswatini television stood as the kingdom's window to the world, capturing the hopes, voices, and dreams of a nation rising with its king. As His Majesty the King guided the nation through its formative years, Eswatini television grew into the heartbeat of national expression. From community stories to national events, every frame carried the pride, rhythm, and the voice of a kingdom united by its king.
Walilekelela live umsakazo. Walilekelela ingonyama ngaloko ukuthi phela nawe i-public broadcaster ufuna ukhulume iqiniso njengemfundisi. Umsakazo-ke usita lapha ekuthini na usheshe wayikhipha indzaba lenye iyasita ekuthini awu sekuyashangala. Sekusheshe kutholakala ama-solutions. Akusinje lokhu sonke isikhathi kuhleba lomunye, kuceba lomunye, no. Kweku-aletha lelive lonke lithi-ke ngema-structures alo kube nesikhathi lokuthi lilungise leto tinto letonakalayo.
I'd say you're right. We are a public broadcaster, and being a public broadcaster means we exist to provide a public service. And it is a public service of educating, informing, and entertaining Maswati. Particularly doing all these elements through the Swazi way, or telling the story of Eswatini, and also carrying and propagating the message and the vision of His Majesty the King.
Under His Majesty's guidance, Eswatini television became the stage for empowerment. New voices rose. Women led, youth found their calling, telling stories of culture, resilience, and hope.
His Majesty's reign reminds us that media can educate and empower. We tell stories that celebrate Eswatini's identity.
Guided by His Majesty's vision of modernization, Eswatini Television embraced innovation, evolving from analog to digital, from one channel to a network that connects every corner of the kingdom. Through technology, we carried the royal message of unity, of peace and progress to every screen and every heart.
Itolo kusakada kwethu bese kubita ngalesilungu ukuthi ku-analog. Lokusho ukuthi ku-signal. Ngidawuthi mhlawumbe ngile final product lefika emakhaya. Bokhanza ukuthi kukhona kufisitela kwemsindo, kukhona kufisitela kwesithombe. Lobe khanza ke ukuthi uzodwa ukhanza umuntu omdzalo umisa umntwana, hey ibhikisi ijikisi uyibhekisele. Ijikisi uyibhekisele ukhanza sigcina sithombe lemsindo kuvakala ngconywana akhona ebuyela umuntu omdzalo emakhaya.
Today, as Eswatini celebrates His Majesty King Mswati III's 40th year on the throne, we look back with such pride. For 4 decades, Eswatini Television has carried the King's vision across time, preserving the memory, the message, and the majesty of our nation's story.
Eswatini TV has been that conduit that carries the voice of His Majesty the King over his 40 years of reign. His Majesty the King, through different forums, including Sibaya, speaks great messages in terms of the direction that the country should take, in terms of guidance to Emaswati, in terms of also just inspiring the nation. Eswatini TV carries those messages to the entire country and the rest of the world.
40 years of the King, 40 years of the nation's voice. Eswatini Television salutes His Majesty King Mswati III, our beacon of unity, culture and progress. Long live the King, long live Eswatini.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba research bafunze. Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kumula.
Nathi kufuna senze ukukhicita lokusemini.
Right, welcome back. We did mention in the beginning that we will speak to EMRC, a very important conversation around what they do in terms of continuing to empower, as well as, you know, just looking at securing the nation through quality higher education by offering government sponsorship, as well as ESHEC accredited degree programs. All of these programs continue to prepare students for impactful as well as professional careers. And today's discussions focus on 3 key programs at the EMRC, and that is disaster risk management and disaster risk reduction and disaster risk management, as well as public health. And we want to really understand these programs, which EMRC says are designed to equip students with practical skills, but not only practical skills, also with academic knowledge and professional competencies needed to address modern societal workplace, as well as health and environmental challenges. Joining us today are 2 lecturers from the respective departments. It is Lemohang Mukoka as well as Palesa Mavusa. Very good morning to the both of you and welcome to the program.
Thank you.
It's windy outside, and I hope you guys are not thinking about disasters now. I'm a little worried, but I know that we have you guys if there's disasters. But maybe to begin, if you will, just please briefly introduce yourselves and the programs that you represent here today. Let's start with you, Lemah.
Okay, thank you. I'm Lemah Mokoka, and I'm representing Department of Disaster Risk Reduction and Management from EMRC. Yeah.
Pam?
Thank you. I'm Pamela Mavuso, and I'm the head of the Public Health Department at EMRC.
Yeah. EMRC, and this is what it says, it offers government-sponsored and ESHEC-accredited degree programs. From an academic perspective, what does this mean, really, for students and their future careers?
Well, basically, this means that the programs that are offered at EMRC, or rather Emergency Medical Rescue College, are supported both at the national level and also maybe we might say internationally, mainly because the Ministry of Education, or rather the government of Eswatini through the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, does offer funding that is to give students who are much interested in studying at EMRC the opportunity to study with the less academic or rather the less financial burden to them. So it makes the opportunity open to those deserving students who actually want to join us at the institution. And likewise, our programs are ESHEC accredited, meaning that we meet the standards that are set by ESHEC, which is the Higher Education Council of Eswatini, meaning that the programs that we're offering at EMRC are actually credible.
Yeah, the world, and I choked when we started our conversation that it's windy outside. We should be experiencing this year a very windy autumn, right? Just before winter. What we are seeing now is unprecedented. And so it is also signaling what is happening around the world. Even outside of the country, I think you did also mention this before we started our conversation, that there's volcanoes in other countries. It's just a lot of disasters that we are seeing, as well as emergencies, increasingly growing, right?
Yes.
So how important then is disaster reduction and management today, and what skills do students need to gain from this program?
Thank you, sir. Disaster risk reduction and management is more important than ever before, because like we have said, the world is facing quite a plethora of hazards that range from climate change, public health emergencies, we have technological hazards, and they increase the community's vulnerabilities. Therefore, this program is important because we are saying that the disasters do not only affect the physicality of people, they affect the infrastructure, they affect the health sectors and the overall well-being of the communities. Therefore, it's important to have trained professionals, right, that can be able to attend to those and help communities improve the resilience and to prevent the risks that come with disasters. Yeah. So it is very important, and we are looking at different opportunities with regard to that, but at the same time at EMRC we are also providing not only the theoretical knowledge but the practical knowledge of how to tackle the issue of disaster risk reduction and management, because even in its name it says it's disaster risk reduction and management. We are not only answering to responding to emergencies, right? We are also looking into reducing the risk before the hazard actually becomes a disaster. So we are looking at the whole continuum. So that is a
proactive approach, if you will.
Yes.
Coming back to you, Pam, she's speaking on something very important, that it's a lot of facets that EMRC is focused on, and another one is one that is very important, and that is public health, which continues to play a critical role in protecting communities. How does this program come in there?
Okay, thank you so much. Well, with public health, with the department, we have designed it in a sense that we want to train public health professionals in order to create safer communities. Now, how do we do that? We have so many areas that are related to public health. That is disease prevention, for example, that is disease control, that is community mental health, that is epidemiology, that is policy making as well. So we make sure that we equip our students with such skills to enhance those safer communities that we have. So for example, we want to teach them, or rather we teach them how to identify the major public health issues and also how to try and analyze those health problems and also develop the necessary interventions on how we can try to reduce those public health problems. So the aim is to create safer communities and healthier communities. So we train our students in a way that we want them to be advocates of safer and healthier communities.
Yeah, there was a headline yesterday, a very disturbing one. I think it was from the Eswatini Observer, and it speaks to the unemployment crisis in Eswatini. It said Eswatini now has the highest unemployment rate in Africa. We had to interrogate the factuality of that, but as it stands, it is the going notion of the day. Everyone's talking about it outside. And so when we speak programs like the one that EMRC offers, I think there's a great opportunity there in what it does. And maybe Lebohang, you can enlighten me further here, because a lot of students are focused on employability after graduating, right? Do these programs speak to that?
Absolutely. For instance, the disaster management program offers employability across different sectors. That is both the public sector and the private sector, you know. And also the students can work on different departments. That is the government, like I have said, disaster management agencies, humanitarian agencies, and the international community, all right? Also, there are different available career paths. Disaster management is also interdisciplinary in nature, so there are quite a plethora of opportunities or career paths that students can engage in after graduating, and they may be disaster risk analysts, disaster risk professionals in different contexts, emergency preparedness managers. They can be employed in the environmental space and different other spaces. So there's quite a wide range where students can be absorbed, because disaster management also, it's everywhere. It cuts across every sector, so they can be able to be employed across many areas. Yes.
It certainly is cross-cutting. And Pam, you've been nodding your head. You look like you want to chime in there in terms of, you know, the employability conversation.
Yeah, that is actually true, because even our public health graduates at EMRC do have the opportunity to, you know, blend in the work world. They could be working as your public health officers, they could be working as your community health coordinators, epidemiology assistants, they could also be research assistants as well. So it is quite a vast opportunity for our students. And an advantage for this public health department that we have at EMRC is that we not only relay the theoretical knowledge to them, but we also give them those skills that they need, practical skills that they need in order to blend in the work world. Those are your communication skills. We're talking about problem-solving skills and also teamwork. So it's very, very, very important.
It's important indeed. We have under a minute, 30 seconds each. A final message that you have to the students who may want to enroll in these programs.
Okay, thank you so much. I would say that if you want to save lives and you want to be engaged in saving lives and communities, disaster management is for you, because there's a lot that is done. Like Ms. Pamela have said, the institution does not only offer the theoretical aspect, but it also brings into the practical aspect, so that even when you go out there, blending in is easier, and also you can also be able to make changes and in general. Thank you.
You have anything to add to that?
As quickly as I can, yes. My only advice for our prospective students is that do not go for these causes just because you want to be employed, but you want to be someone who has a meaningful impact in society.
All right.
Yes.
Lemohang Mokoka, Pamela Mavuso, Emergency Medical Rescue College lecturers. Insights there. Let's go for a net break. We'll be back with an interview.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba research bafunze. Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kumula.
nathi kufuna sente ukukhiqiza lokusembili.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Breakfast Show. We get into our very important interview segment now, which looks at 40 years of Eswatini's relations under King Mswati III, and that speaks to our bilateral relations as well as our unilateral relations. Of course, just days after the historic state visit by President Lai Ching-te to Eswatini, that is the Taiwanese president who is in Eswatini. Fresh attention has now once again been placed on one of Africa's most closely looked and watched diplomatic relations. Of course, Eswatini marking 40 years of His Majesty's reign in the Kingdom of Eswatini. The kingdom's bilateral and multilateral relations have become central to understanding our economic survival, our geopolitical positioning, as well as our development strategy. Sanele Sbia is in the studio. He's our economist who we know now and quite familiar with, who's going to help us understand where we are and where we're going, Mr. Sbia. Thank you so much for making time for us. I mean, the Taiwan president, they call him President Lai. I love to use the whole thing. President Lai Ching-te. He has just concluded a high-profile state visit here at home. We saw it started a lot of talk even in the foreign media as to how he eventually was able to come here. But discussions, a lot of them centering around, and the headline says, around energy, investment, industrial innovation, and cooperation. Just how significant has this visit been economically?
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo, and good morning. So what we're seeing here, firstly, let me just start by saying, if you look at our foreign policy stance as a kingdom, it is that one of non-alignment and alignment, as in Agnasi, it's, we're always a neutral country, which then allows us to be able to always interface with any other country and get those benefits that we can get. I mean, we've seen quite a lot of people come into the country when you know that other countries actually against that, but because of our non-alignment philosophy in terms of our foreign policy, then Eswatini is able to work with every other country that is out there. So when you look at what actually happened between Eswatini, Taiwan, and the whole saga about the president then not being able to come into Eswatini, so the fact that he made the time to come even after the event, and the fact that, presidents are very busy people, so you can't just tell them today that you need to go to Eswatini. The fact that he just came after the event, now that shows how much our bilateral relation with the Republic of China on Taiwan are. And not only does that show that we have strong bilateral relations, and we also have these strong developmental ties. If you sit and look at the structures, the Mbane Government Hospital there, that new fence wing, now that was with support from the Taiwanese. And if you look at the very vast business park that is yet to be built in Matapa. Again, that comes as a direct relationship as a direct outcome of the relationship we have with the Republic of China and Taiwan. And then you have the Taiwanese technical mission, the Taiwanese medical mission. And if you look around, we've also have, the Taiwanese sponsorship for a lot of children. A lot of children are in school because the Taiwanese are supporting, the Coco centers throughout the country. So everyone, when you travel around the country, you see things like there is always a Taiwan in every constituency. Wherever there is a Coco center, people would always call it Taiwan. They would say, no, Slape Taiwan type of thing, because the Taiwanese are just the ones that are
investment in agriculture as well.
Yeah, then there's agriculture, which is quite, we only started growing rice when the Taiwanese started assisting us in that front, looking at other vegetables that can be grown. And then there is the youth and the women drive there. The fish, there's quite a lot that this partnership is bringing on board. And the fact that we are now the only country throughout the whole of Africa that still maintains direct bilateral relations with the Republic of China and Taiwan. So we are getting a lot of the support, and our developmental aid and developmental agenda is largely supported by the Taiwanese, including other development partners there. And we are seeing the Taiwanese really just putting their boots on the ground and supporting the kingdom in multiple areas of development. And if you look at, I don't know whether it's been launched or not, I'm going to be talking about things that are probably high level. What we call it, the business space, the e-commerce. The Taiwanese are also largely and heavily involved and heavily invested in e-commerce. And then if you look at the construction of the strategic oil reserve, again, we got the support and the funding from the Taiwanese, and that was our biggest loan ever. So I doubt you would have found the support for that loan, as a unit, just like one. So if we are giving Eswatini 5 billion, so that was going to be a bit tough to come by, but because of our bilateral relations, we got it.
And of course, the conversations now, fresh off his state visit this time around, a lot of centers around energy, as well as investment, industrial innovation, as well as cooperation. And I think you did touch on the Taiwan Industrial Park, which is going to be a heavy investment in the Kingdom of Eswatini that is set to start hopefully very soon and be completed very soon. And I think this is just a really beautiful moment for the Kingdom of Eswatini. And you do mention that we are the last remaining diplomatic ally for them. But critics often argue Eswatini has missed out economically, particularly by not switching diplomatic recognition to China. From an economist point of view, how do you chime in there?
I don't think we have missed out. Because the way you look at it right now is Taiwan has and had a very big budget for Africa. So right now that entire budget is targeted straight for Eswatini. And I think that's why we're able to talk of that big industrial park and quite a lot of the heavy investments, because everyone has switched allegiances, right? And then also if you look at the global positioning of Taiwan. Taiwan makes the best chips ever. So Eswatini is strategically placed to actually learn from that and also harness the artificial intelligence and quite a lot of things coming through from the Taiwanese. And if you look at the energy space, back in, I think last year or the previous year, we had the central bank, going to Taiwan to try and learn how you could then start carbon trading and those environment stocks and listings there. So there is quite a lot to be done, and there is quite a lot that we are gaining. But yeah, the long and short of it is, yes, China is the world's firm. So if you could import directly from there, then it makes it relatively easy. But again, if you look at the fact that any businessman would still want to sell to anyone. So Eswatini are still able to import from China, and in terms of the market duty free. This other day I just sat and asked myself, like, what is it that Africa can sell to China except for raw materials? Because they're efficient in any other way compared to the African countries, except for selling them agricultural produce and raw materials that have been extracted directly from the ground. Really, I don't see any competitive edge or any comparative advantage that Africans could have in terms of accessing that market. In as much as it may be duty-free right now, but do you access it? Do you have the capability to access it? But in terms of the minerals which the Chinese industry needs, then they would go there, and we are not that heavily invested in our minerals. So really, I do not see us losing quite a lot in terms of that, of those ties. And in terms of getting all the technical assistance that we need, I think Taiwan is the best bet, because they are also just giving up quite a lot so that you maintain this relationship.
An important one at that, because I mean, while we just looked at what critics are saying about this relationship, supporters of this relationship also cite something which is very important here in saying that Eswatini has built credibility through, this consistency and loyalty in international diplomacy particularly. Does that diplomacy carry a lot of weight economically?
Yes, it does, Mr. Numalo. For example, I'll just take you to the recent shifts in development finance and development funding, more especially within the HIV space. But Eswatini was able to retain a huge chunk, around 5 billion, in that MOU. That's largely because we have not swayed in terms of our allegiances, and we remain very much aligned to Taiwan. And the U.S. is known for supporting the Taiwanese. And by virtue that Eswatini is the only country in Africa that is not, that has not ditched Taiwan, we are somehow the best base for all the world's superpowers that are trying to, balance the scale against the Chinese. So you would expect that you would get the Europeans to come in country, you would get, the US to also just support Eswatini, because they do need some neutral ground on which they can, launch, not missiles per se, but launch their strategies. And
the word launch.
It's the word launch. Launch their strategies and everything with the confidence that we are in safe spaces. Because I mean, I don't know if you've seen this, where it was reported that China built the AU headquarters, and then when they did, I don't know what they were doing, then they discovered that the whole thing had a lot of microphones and it was transmitting information directly there. So internationally, that's quite a lot of things that countries are looking at to say, if we go to Eswatini, are we not going to be transmitting to our enemies, our strategies and all of those things? So when you have a partner like Taiwan who's always open about what they're doing and not looking to somehow store your information quite a lot. So it is quite beneficial economically.
Our conversation is not only centered on Taiwan. I mean, of course, this is fresh because we just had President Lai in Eswatini. We looking at every bilateral relation. I mean, of course, if time is going to allow us. I want us to shift to South Africa. And you often cite this important fact that Eswatini and South Africa remain the biggest economic partner in this relationship, in particular with Eswatini. Has that relationship been more beneficial, or has it created a lot of dependency over time, which is a risk?
So the way I've always looked at it, Ngumalo, is it is beneficial, and also at the same time it is detrimental, in the sense that we are able to get whatever it is that we need from the Republic of South Africa. We are part of the SACO, which funds a huge chunk of our budget. We are part of the CMA, which stabilizes our currency, right? Right. But because of that free flow of labor and capital and everything, the kingdom remains dwarfed in a number of ways. And in terms of industries that would have grown, you find that a lot of the industries that are in Eswatini are basically just headquartered in South Africa, because it's relatively easy now that creates creates competition which the locals cannot compete with, and then we find ourselves being dependent instead of growing certain industries that may have grown. So now that's why I always say it's a bit detrimental, but at the same time it is beneficial. But also it leaves us vulnerable, for example, in terms of how you control your monetary policy. You don't have control over that. How you control your fiscal policy. Theoretically, you do have control, but if South Africa changes, or if SACU changes the revenue sharing formula, so effectively they have told you that you need to either cut down on your spending, which is our fiscal policy, or increase on your spending. So we lose on that flexibility. So we're not able to chart an independent path from South Africa. For example, we have COMESA as well, which looks at becoming a customs union. You have SADC, which also looks at becoming a customs union. So you have these three that are ongoing, but because we are so tied to SACU, even if when you run the numbers, they would say you realize that you're better off with COMESA, but it's just going to become quite a lot of work and a lot of balancing. So there are opportunities that we lose by virtue of the integration in the southern part.
I mean, of course, and we will get to the regional blocks in COMESA and SADC, but perhaps just drilling further on SACU and our heavy reliance on SACU. I think we can be frank that it's a heavy reliance there. 40 years later, has Eswatini diversified enough economically?
No, we haven't diversified enough economically, Mr. Nxumalo. It is what I call the negative legacy of success, and I've always said this. We've been okay with SACU. It has always funded our fiscal purse, and there was a time it was funding over 50%. It's only now that it is down to 30%. But when you look in terms of the numbers, the reason it has come down is because probably we're doing a lot of deficit financing outside of SACU, and we are also just growing a tiny portion, a tiny bit. So now that's where things are. We haven't diversified well enough. You would want to get to a situation where SACU finances quite a menial part of the budget, because you don't want to remain very much, at the whims of where SACU goes. And if you look at back to the 2010s, there when the revenue sharing formula was changed, we had to do a lot of adjustments as a country. That is why I'm saying, as much as we have independent fiscal policy, but the leverage comes through SACU. And I am not sure if you are aware of the fact that SACU chairmanship is always with South Africa. So South Africa can control the way a lot of the countries are moving.
I mean, of course, shifting over, I mean, not even shifting, on this very topic of the SACU reliance, and you're calling it the negative, what did you call it, the negative legacy of success. I like that phrase. His Majesty King Mswati III, I mean, frankly, Hogandaba has pronounced, and I think in the last 3 parliaments, opening sessions of the 12th parliament, that we need to see that we continue to rely on SACU at our own peril. And therefore he has called upon for, I believe it's called PPPs? Is that what it's called? The private-public partnerships. 40 years later, again, that question still stands. Have we diversified enough? Yes, you gave us the answer that we haven't diversified enough. But His Majesty's calls, I think, are a sobering reminder of what we ought to do if we are diversifying going forward. Let's speak to that. Is our parliament, is the government responding enough? Is the private sector, because that is also a call to them, are they coming to the fore?
I think part of it, Mr. Nxumalo, is in business. If I have a market, that's the market that I want to maintain before I start diversifying. So that's why I'm saying our integration to South Africa somehow limits our options, our ingenuity, our exploration of options. Because if I know that I have a market there, I'm going to send my commodities there. And then we get, to explore other markets quite less. I'll just take you back to the sugar industry. I think our sugar started exploring African markets markets are post the denudation of the sugar protocol, because then our quota to the EU was somehow, just taken out, and then we had to compete on a market basis. So that's when we started looking intra-Africa, and we found that market in Kenya and, the Comesa region. So at times when you have this success, Ngumalo, it tends to limit your thinking scope and limit what you can do, because you know that it's going to go there. Then we tend to just react when there's a shock to say, no, we do need to diversify. So we do need as a country to ensure that we are always on our toes, looking into other opportunities like the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, find those comparative advantage areas and then penetrate those markets, and also just diversify beyond what we know, so that we have a well-diversified economy and a growing economy. And I think another thing that I liked coming through from His Majesty was the call to say we need mega business in Eswatini, businesses with a turnover of about 10 billion. Because once you can get to that level, that means you're playing at a different league. And I think that's what the Taiwanese Industrial Park is going to do, because we are going to get those big business and that big output, and then that's going to start driving growth. But you don't need just one, you need quite a lot of them, so that they can compete amongst themselves, because you don't want to have an industry that's too big to fail as well.
I mean, Mr. Spear, what is the one single biggest threat to, I see what Minister Neil has been trying to do. In fact, the whole government has been trying to do, of course, Minister Neil being there at the forefront, and trying not to rely too much heavily on SACU. What is the single one biggest threat that will see us going back there? I mean, I think me and you just last week, or just this past week, we were talking to the global uncertainty around fuel, the Strait of Hormuz and everything else, the geopolitical issues and the effects of it. Is the fuel crisis, because that's a global crisis now, a big impediment in that as well? Possibly.
Yeah, but that's something we really cannot control, because it does in a way impede your options as a country. But it's not the biggest, because
what is the single biggest?
We see the prices are always going to adjust, and markets are always going to sort themselves out on that front, with government just coming in with I think I said it was a 209 million cost recovery that government is going to pay, but that's coming through. Yeah,
I think that was your fear this past week, that if we keep having to go back there, and then that's unsustainable.
Yeah. So my thinking is my biggest fear is we seem to be shifting away from SACU, but the way we are going about doing it is not growing the economy to levels where we are saying we are now sure.
Why are we getting it wrong? How should we get it right?
Right now, our model has shifted more towards debt financing, deficit financing, so that it lowers the number that, the ratio when you're looking at SACU over the overall budget. It makes it seem like SACU is now at 30%, but we are going to get to a point where you get to what we call debt overhang. So when you can't borrow anymore because you've borrowed such that you can't afford to pay. So I think right now we do not have any two ways about it. We need to get the economy growing. That's what I've always said. Saying right now, you need to get the economy growing, so that when you then compare the GDP to debt ratio, it is below a certain threshold, and then you're able to keep the country running in all aspects, not just focusing on mega projects and the deficit finance.
What does the biggest responsibility to get the economy growing sit on? Whose shoulders?
It's on all of us.
On all of us, but that's a very safe answer.
No, it's on all of us.
It is on all of us.
Number one, when you talk of job creation, I think the way we have it is we think government is to create the jobs. But it's not government's job to create the jobs, but government's job is to make sure that the environment is conducive and people can start and run businesses.
Is government doing enough to make the environment conducive?
You can always do better, but in terms of the environment, it is becoming conducive.
So they are doing something which is quite commendable.
Which is quite commendable. But what I think has to happen, I don't know how we can get to this point where we can have local banks, funding local mega businesses so that we are not exporting, everything out of this country, where you get to find that a lot of the profits are just repatriated and we are left with just the jobs and even no technical skills when all is said and done. So we do need to think around the financing modalities in terms of how we can grow local mega businesses so that we create a sustainable economy.
Let's look at development in the future. Looking back over the past 40 years, what would you identify as Eswatini's biggest diplomatic economic win internationally?
Internationally, I think our biggest diplomatic or economic win for me would be maintaining the relationship with Taiwan and the benefits that are coming through from that one. And also, if you look at our non-alignment policy, we've been able to also get into the Persian Gulf region and, being able to just play in that
Very
space,
important.
that Dubai space there. And we've been able to stay with Europe and still have a bit of preferential access for our beef. And then we've also maintained AGOA, what it takes to always maintain AGOA and have access to that. So I think the country has done well in terms of running and maintaining quite a lot of viable economic partnerships, and we're also part of the greater European, economic partnership there. So we've done very well. We just need to.
I think then that the follow-up question to that, while we celebrate what we have done over the past 40 years in terms of our economic win, that is in the international front, in the next decade, let's just take a decade, because we could say 40 years, but a decade, I think, is much more feasible.
Yeah.
What would you say would be a best strategy for Eswatini in international partnerships to maximize our economic growth and resilience?
Number one would be support the locals so that they can have access to those markets, because having markets is one thing, and having the capability and ability to support and supply that market is something else entirely. So we do need to have the lab facilities to make sure that our beef can go straight into the European markets. And then secondly, when you come into AGOA, we do need to build the capacity and look through the product lines. There's about 6,000 product lines there, and Eswatini is only using one. Now that should tell you that there is something wrong. You need to find a comparative advantage and also support that industry so that it's able to use AGOA as a launch pad and then grow into other areas. And then we need to look into those things. And then we need to review and relook at our relationship with Taiwan and see where we can find and what we can supply there and how we can get to be competitive. We need to have a bilateral, in the truest sense of bilateral, to say, what can we send you guys so that we are also gaining something?
You said local banks should finance our mega businesses. And I think another very important point in what you're saying we should do in terms of not only having the access to the markets, but being able, having the capability to play in those markets. The small and medium enterprises, they require trade finance mostly, and they can rarely get it. There's a lot of hurdles around that. Maybe perhaps there's something to look at in terms of, let's maximize that.
Yeah, we do need to do that, Mr. Ngumalo, because, in my past life, I've done a study on this, and you'd realize that we do have a lot of these guarantee schemes up to, I think, 2 billion or 2 million. That's a lot of money, but the problem is, how do you get it? You'd need a business plan. You'd need to pay quite a lot of upfront costs before you can get that money. And those consultants, you just can't come to SBIA and say, SBIA, draft a business plan for me. There's a list of consultants there. So there's a lot of structural, issues that we need to deal with around those guarantee schemes so that, SMEs are able to get to those. And you remove the access barriers, make sure that it's quite accessible.
Because while you consult Mr. SBIA and the process takes as long as you say that it does. China, for example, not even China, let's not use China and Taiwan. Let's just use a different country. Let's say Nevada, for example, has requested for 500,000 in Macebesha. You don't have the funding capacity to make them and take them there, and therefore you lose and the country loses economically. Thank you for your time. We really appreciate your insights. Sanele Sibiya, always, smart insights per usual. We appreciate his time and certainly appreciate your time joining us here on the program. This is how we begin our week on a positive note, and we're still reflecting on 40 years of His Majesty's stern and wise leadership. Sithi bayethebwe naphakathi lunwele lolutse bangazitha nibe nosuku loluhle nisale kahle.
Mswati inkosi Thula akayithathe akahambe nayo akayithathe yedenza bakhe
The day you take Christ into your life, you begin to walk in a blessing.
Emaswati Master ushiya simakazi sibukela abanye bonkulunkulu uNkulunkulu utawukhwesha kithi emaswati singamlahli uNkulunkulu
sitomdumisa sisho sithi uyigwele somali
mase ubutholile lobungcwele hlala ungilongcwele.
Ningesabi niMaswati, this is our season. Nguye idolo, nguye namuhla, nguye nakusasa.
Ngempela sehlelweni lelithi siyakudumisa Mxosi Mavele yakubingelela ihlelweni angubingelele mbokelo wami namhla ngikwemukele kulolu